He forgot me. The world destroyed me. They killed one of my babies to silence me. So I learned their rules and rebuilt myself into the woman they would all learn to fear. My name is Bella Torres, or at least it was. That girl died 3 years ago in an alley, beaten and broken, her unborn daughter dying with her. Now I am Isabel Kane, CEO, survivor. The woman who owns the empire of the man who dismissed her with a note. But let me take you back to where it all began. The morning I woke up in a penthouse I did not recognize, wrapped in silk sheets that cost more than my entire semester's tuition. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My head pounded. My memory was fragmented. I remembered my classmates at the party. Remembered drinks I should not have accepted. Remembered someone saying, "William Norman will be there. This is your chance to meet a real billionaire." William Norman, tech CEO, 32 years old, worth billions, famously reclusive, and apparently the owner of this penthouse. I sat up quickly, my heart racing. What had I done? The bed beside me was empty, but unmade. A note on the nightstand read, "Lock the door when you leave." That was it. No name, no number, just a cold dismissal. I grabbed my clothes from the floor and dressed quickly, my hand shaking. I was Bella Torres, a broke college student on scholarship. I had no business being in places like this with people like him. As I left that penthouse, I made myself a promise. I would forget this night, forget him, move on with my life. I had no idea how impossible that promise would become, or how that one reckless night would destroy everything I knew and force me to rebuild myself into someone William Norman would learn to fear. 6 weeks later, I stared at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. My hands trembled so badly, I dropped it in the bathroom sink. Pregnant. I was pregnant. I took 3 more tests, all positive. My roommate knocked on the bathroom door. "Bella, you okay in there?" I was not okay. I was 21 years old, barely scraping by on scholarships and part-time jobs. And I was carrying the child of a billionaire who had dismissed me with a note. I made an appointment at the campus health center. The doctor confirmed it with an ultrasound. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "Based on the measurements, you're about 7 weeks along. Everything looks healthy." Healthy. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt terror. Is there more than one?" I asked, noticing something on the screen. The doctor adjusted the monitor. "Oh, yes, actually. Twins. Congratulations, that's quite special. Twins." I was carrying 2 babies. 2 lives that depended on me. I left the clinic in a daze. I could not afford 1 child, let alone 2. I could not tell William. He had made it clear I meant nothing to him. And I could not tell my family. My mother and sister would use this to humiliate me further. I sat in my dorm room that night, hand on my still flat stomach, and made a decision. I would keep them. Both of them. I would figure out how to survive. I would protect these babies even if it destroyed everything else in my life. I had no idea how prophetic that thought would be. My mother found out when I was 3 months along. I had been hiding it well, but she noticed during a family dinner. "You've gained weight," she said, her voice sharp with judgment. "And you look sick. What's wrong with you?" My sister Natasha smirked. "Maybe she's pregnant. Wouldn't that be perfect?" The scholarship girl knocked up. It was meant as a cruel joke. But my face must have given me away. My mother's expression shifted from annoyance to cold calculation. "You're pregnant. Who's the father?" I stayed silent. "Answer me, Bella. Is it that boyfriend of yours? The one who can barely afford gas money?" "We broke up," I said quietly. "We had. Marcus had ended things when I stopped having time for him between school and work. He did not even know about the pregnancy." "Then who?" Natasha demanded. I should have lied. Should have made up a story. But I was exhausted and scared, and I made a terrible mistake. "William Norman." The room went completely silent. Then Natasha burst out laughing. "The William Norman? The billionaire? You expect us to believe that?" "It doesn't matter if you believe it," I said. "It's true." My mother's eyes gleamed. Not with sympathy or support. With opportunity. If that's true, you need to tell him. Demand support. We could finally have the life we deserve.
This isn't about you, I said.
I'm not asking him for anything. Don't be stupid, my mother snapped. You have leverage now. Use it. But I would not. I would not be the woman who trapped a man with pregnancy. Even a man who had treated me like I was nothing. That decision would haunt me, because my mother and sister had other plans. The gossip spread across campus within days. I did not know how, whether my sister had leaked it or my mother had told someone, but suddenly everyone knew. Bella Torres claimed to be pregnant with William Norman's baby. The whispers followed me everywhere. In classes. In the cafeteria. In the library where I worked. Gold digger, someone hissed as I passed. She probably planned the whole thing, another voice said. Trying to trap a billionaire. My professors started looking at me differently. My scholarship coordinator called me in for a meeting. These allegations are creating a distraction, she said carefully. If you need to take a leave of absence, I'm not leaving, I said firmly. I haven't done anything wrong. But the pressure mounted. Then William's PR team appeared. A woman in a designer suit found me leaving class. Ms. Torres? I'm Catherine Walsh, representing Mr. Norman. We need to talk. She led me to a coffee shop off campus. Pulled out a folder. Mr. Norman is willing to offer you a substantial settlement in exchange for your silence and a signed agreement that he has no parental responsibilities. He didn't even ask if it's true, I said quietly. He just assumed I'm lying or scheming. Are you saying the pregnancy is legitimate? Catherine's voice was sharp. I'm saying I want nothing from him. Tell Mr. Norman to forget I exist. I stood to leave. Catherine grabbed my wrist. That's not how this works. The rumors are already damaging his reputation. We need this contained. Name your price. There is no price, I said, pulling away. Because I'm not for sale. I walked out. Made it 3 blocks before breaking down, crying on a park bench. That night, I leaked the story myself. To a gossip blog. To social media. Everything. William Norman's PR team tried to pay me off. Here's the proof. I included screenshots of Catherine's emails, the settlement offer, everything. If they were going to destroy my reputation, I would at least make sure the truth was out there. I thought I was fighting back. I did not realize I had just declared war on people with far more weapons than I possessed. The story exploded. Within 24 hours, it was everywhere. News sites, social media, television, but not in the way I had hoped. The narrative was not about William's cold dismissal or the settlement offer.
It was about me.
Gold-digging student traps billionaire with pregnancy claims. William Norman victim of calculated scheme. Woman admits to blackmail attempt. They twisted everything. Made me the villain. The settlement offer became evidence that I was demanding money. My refusal became increasing demands. My social media posts were dissected and criticized. Photos of me from the party, drunk, disheveled, circulated with cruel captions. My scholarship was suspended pending an ethics investigation. The university cannot endorse this behavior, the dean told me. You've brought shame to this institution. My part-time job fired me. We can't have this kind of publicity associated with our business. Friends stopped talking to me. People I thought I could trust turned away when I approached. Only one person reached out. William himself. His assistant called. Mr. Norman would like to meet with you privately. He's willing to discuss support for the child if paternity can be established. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt numb. This was not about doing what was right. This was damage control. But I was desperate. Drowning. So I agreed to meet. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I never made it. Because 3 days before, everything got worse in ways I could never have imagined. I was walking home from the library late at night. The streets near campus were usually safe, but I was distracted, exhausted, barely paying attention. They came out of an alley. 3 men in dark clothes. Later, I found out they were sent by my sister, Natasha. That's her, one said. Before I could scream, they grabbed me, dragged me into the alley. You should have taken the money, one of them said. Then they beat me.
Fists. Kicks.
I curled up, trying to protect my stomach, trying to protect my babies. Someone pulled out a phone, took photos of me on the ground. This is what happens to liars who go after important people, a voice said. Then they left. I lay there in the rain that had started falling, blood mixing with water on the pavement. I managed to crawl to the street. Someone called an ambulance. I woke up in the hospital. My mother was there, crying dramatically. Not for me. For the cameras that had somehow found out about my attack. My poor daughter, she sobbed. Attacked for trying to tell the truth. But I barely heard her. I was focused on the doctor's face, on the sympathy and sadness I saw there. Ms. Torres, he said gently. I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but one of the twins didn't survive. The trauma was too much. One of my babies was gone. Dead, because I had dared to speak up. Because I had refused to disappear quietly. The grief consumed me. But beneath it, something else was growing. Something cold and calculating. If I survived this, if my remaining child survived this, I would make them pay. Every person who had chosen reputation over justice. Every person who had looked away while I was destroyed. And especially William Norman, whose silence had painted a target on my back. I would burn every name behind this. Or die trying. The hospital bills were crushing. My mother visited, but only to remind me of my failures. This is what happens when you aim too high, she said. You should have taken the settlement money. Now look at you. Natasha was worse. She posted on social media about how her troubled sister had brought shame to the family. Used my tragedy to gain sympathy and followers. But then something unexpected happened. William's assistant returned. Not Catherine this time. Someone new. Mr. Norman was not aware of the attack until after it happened, the assistant said quietly. He's horrified. And he wants to make this right. Right? I laughed bitterly. One of my children is dead.
How do you make that right?
He's offering $500,000. No strings. No contracts. Just support for you and the surviving child. I should have thrown it in his face. Should have told them to go to hell. But I looked at my medical bills. At my suspended scholarship. At my complete lack of options. I'll take it, I said. But not as charity. As a loan. I'll pay back every cent. The assistant looked confused. That's not necessary. Yes, it is, I interrupted. Because I don't want to owe him anything. Not guilt. Not gratitude. Nothing. When the money came, I did not spend it on rent or bills. I invested it.
Carefully. Strategically.
I found underground financial advisors. Learned about shell companies and market manipulation. Used my pain and my rage to fuel a plan. If William Norman thought $500,000 would make me disappear, he was wrong. I was going to use his own money to destroy him. It would take years. It would take everything I had. But I would do it. For my lost child. For my surviving son. For myself. 3 years passed. 3 years of strategic planning and careful execution. 3 years of becoming someone new. I had given birth to Liam 6 months after the attack. A beautiful, perfect boy with his father's dark eyes and my determination. He was my reason for everything. My mother and Natasha had stopped calling once they realized there was no more money to extract. They had moved on to other schemes, other victims. I let them believe I had disappeared. Let them think I was broken and poor somewhere. Meanwhile, I built an empire in the shadows. I started with small investments, tech startups, media companies, real estate. The $500,000 became $1 million, then 5, then 10. I learned everything about business, about leverage, about the art of the hostile takeover. And I studied William Norman, his companies, his investments, his weaknesses. I discovered his empire was impressive but vulnerable, built on reputation more than substance. Too many subsidiaries that barely turned profit. Too much debt hidden behind clever accounting. One strong push in the right place could topple everything. I created a new identity. Isabel Kane, CEO of Kane Media Group. A mysterious entrepreneur who had appeared seemingly overnight with a talent for acquiring struggling companies and turning them profitable. My first major acquisition was a Norman subsidiary, a media outlet that was hemorrhaging money. Williams' board wanted to shut it down. I offered to buy it for twice what it was worth. They could not refuse. The day the sale went through, I sat in my new office and smiled. William Norman had no idea, but I was now inside his empire, and I was going to tear it apart from within. My first board meeting at the newly acquired Norman Media subsidiary was electric. I sat at the head of the table in a designer suit, my hair different, my entire demeanor changed. Bella Torres no longer existed. Isabel Kane was confident, cold, untouchable. The former Norman executives eyed me warily. They had heard about the mysterious Isabel Kane, but had never seen her in person. "Thank you for staying on," I began. "I know transitions can be difficult, but I believe this company has potential that hasn't been realized." One executive, an older man named Harold, spoke up. "With all due respect, Miss Kane, Mr. Norman tried everything to make this profitable. What makes you think you can succeed where he failed?" "Because Mr. Norman was distracted by his other ventures. I'm not. Over the next 6 months, I proved it. I cut the dead weight, brought in new talent, implemented aggressive strategies that the Normans had been too conservative to try. The subsidiary went from losing millions to breaking even, then to profit." William Norman noticed. His assistant requested a meeting. "Mr. Norman would like to congratulate you on turning the company around. He'd like to discuss potential partnerships." I agreed to meet. Not because I wanted his approval, but because I wanted to see him, to look in the eyes of the man whose silence had nearly destroyed me, to see if he would recognize what he had created. The meeting was set for the following week at Norman Tower. I prepared carefully. This would be our first face-to-face encounter since that morning I woke up in his penthouse, since the night that had changed everything. I stood in front of my mirror the night before, studying my reflection. I looked nothing like the broke college student I had been. Everything about me screamed power and control. But my eyes still held all the rage and pain of that girl. "He won't recognize you," I told my reflection. But a small part of me wondered if he would. If some part of him would see past the disguise to the woman he had dismissed so completely. I did not know if I wanted him to recognize me or not. Both outcomes offered their own satisfaction. Recognition meant confrontation. His ignorance meant I could operate freely. Either way, tomorrow would change everything. William Norman's office was exactly what I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, subtle displays of wealth and power. He stood when I entered, extending his hand. "Miss Kane, it's a pleasure to finally meet you." I shook his hand briefly. His grip was firm, his gaze direct, and completely oblivious. He had no idea who I was. "Mr. Norman, thank you for taking the time." We sat across from each other. He discussed potential partnerships, ways our companies could benefit each other. His voice was smooth, professional, the voice of someone who controlled boardrooms and negotiations effortlessly. I watched him, studied him, looked for any sign of the man who had left me that cold note, who had tried to pay me off, whose silence had nearly killed me. "You've done impressive work with a subsidiary," Williams said. "Strategies we didn't consider. I'd like to understand your approach." "My approach is simple," I said. "I identify weakness and eliminate it. I find value others overlook. And I never make the same mistake twice." Something flickered in his eyes. "Not recognition, just interest. You sound like someone who's learned hard lessons." "The hardest," I agreed. "But those lessons made me who I am. I should probably thank the people who taught them to me, right before I destroy them." It was too much, too revealing, but I could not help myself. Williams smiled slightly. "Remind me not to cross you, Miss Kane." "Oh, I don't need to remind you. You'll know when I've been crossed. Everyone always does." We talked for another hour. About business, about strategy, about the future. He was intelligent, charismatic, everything the media said about him, but also cold, calculating, A man who saw everything through the lens of profit and loss. When I left his office, my hands were shaking. Not with fear. With anticipation. The game had officially begun. And William Norman was playing without even knowing there was a game. My sister Natasha had done well for herself in the 3 years since I disappeared. She was engaged to William's cousin, Marcus Norman. I discovered this through careful investigation of William's family tree. Natasha had leveraged my downfall into social capital. She told people she had tried to help her troubled sister, but that I had been beyond saving. She played the victim perfectly. Poor Natasha, burdened with such a shameful family member. Marcus Norman believed every word. Why would not he? Natasha was beautiful, charming, and from a family that had overcome hardship. The truth about that hardship, that they had caused most of it, was conveniently omitted. I decided Natasha would be my second target. I hired investigators to dig into her relationship with Marcus. What they found was perfect. Natasha was running a credit card fraud scheme. Small amounts from Marcus's accounts. Enough to fund her lifestyle, but not enough to raise immediate red flags. She had been doing it for over a year. Patient. Calculated. Exactly like our mother had taught her. I could have exposed her immediately. But I wanted more. I wanted to tie her crimes to the Norman family reputation. To make it look like she was stealing from their charitable foundation. So I waited. I documented everything. Built a case that would be undeniable. Meanwhile, I started feeding information to the media. Anonymous tips about concerns regarding the Norman Foundation's finances. Nothing specific. Just enough to plant seeds of doubt. Audit requests were filed. Investigators started looking into the foundation's records. And buried in those records, they would eventually find Natasha's theft. But I wanted the revelation to come at the perfect moment. When it would cause maximum damage. I wanted Natasha to feel the same humiliation she had helped inflict on me. To stand in front of cameras and try to explain away the unexplainable. Soon, I promised myself. Very soon. I visited my mother one evening. She was living in a nice apartment now. Paid for with money she had extracted from various schemes over the years. She answered the door, not recognizing me at first. Yes? Can I help you? Hello, Mother. It's been a while. Her face went white. Bella? Is that you?
Isabel now.
But yes, it's me. I walked past her into the apartment. Expensive furniture. Designer clothes hanging in the closet. All bought with money she had essentially stolen. You look so different, my mother stammered. What happened to you? Life happened. Or rather, you happened. You and Natasha spreading my story. You benefiting from my destruction. I sat on her expensive couch. I came to give you a warning. A warning. Everything you have, this apartment, your lifestyle, your reputation, it's built on lies and exploitation. And it's all about to collapse. My mother's face hardened. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. Remember when you told me to use my pregnancy as leverage? To demand money from William Norman? I took your advice. Just not the way you expected. I stood to leave. You sold your daughter for comfort and social climbing. I want you to enjoy that comfort. Really savor it. Because it's about to end. Bella, wait. My name is Isabel. Bella died the night she was beaten in an alley. Isabel rose from her ashes. And Isabel doesn't forgive. I left her standing there, fear finally replacing the cold calculation in her eyes. I did not tell her about Liam. Did not mention that she had a grandson she would never know. She had given up the right to that knowledge when she chose social status over her child. Driving away, I felt no satisfaction. Just cold determination. My mother was a side target. A small piece of a larger plan. The real war was still with William Norman. With the system that had protected him while destroying me. That war was about to escalate. Liam was almost 3 years old now. Brilliant. Curious. Unsettlingly perceptive for his age. He knew his father was not in our lives.
What he did not know was why.
One evening, as I put him to bed, he asked the question I had been dreading. Mama, why don't I have a daddy? I sat on his bed, choosing my words carefully.
You do have a daddy.
He just doesn't know about you yet. Why not? How do you explain to a child that his father had been too focused on his reputation to acknowledge his existence? That the world had been so ready to believe the worst about his mother that they nearly killed both of them? Because the world is complicated, I said finally. And sometimes adults make mistakes. Sometimes they don't do what's right because they're scared or confused. Are you going to tell him about me? Someday. When the time is right. Liam thought about this seriously. Is he a good person? The question pierced me. Was William the good person? He had not known about the attack. Had not hired those men. But his silence, his cold dismissal, his willingness to believe the worst, those had created the conditions for everything that followed. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. And then I'm going to make sure he faces the truth about what his choices cost. Will he want to know me? God, this child was too smart. I hope so, I said honestly. But even if he doesn't, you'll always have me. And I'll always protect you. Liam hugged me. I know, Mama. You're the strongest person in the world. If only he knew how close I had come to breaking. How close I still was sometimes. My strength was an illusion. A carefully maintained facade to hide the broken pieces underneath. But for him, I would maintain that illusion. For him, I would be strong enough to face anything. The Norman Foundation Charity Gala was the social event of the season. Everyone who was anyone in the city attended. I received an invitation as Isabel Kane, rising media mogul and recent business partner. I accepted immediately. This would be my first public appearance in William's world since my transformation. The night of the gala, I dressed carefully. A designer gown, perfect hair and makeup, jewelry that cost more than my entire college tuition. I looked powerful, untouchable, everything Bella Torres had never been allowed to be. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, champagne flowing freely. I recognized faces from magazines and news reports. The city's elite gathered to celebrate their own generosity. William stood near the center, surrounded by admirers. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's cars. Looked every inch the successful CEO. I approached slowly, timing my arrival for maximum impact. When I was close enough, I simply stood there, waiting.
He saw me.
Did a slight double take. Not because he recognized me, but because he was struck by my presence. Miss Kane, he said, genuine pleasure in his voice. I didn't know you'd be attending. I wouldn't miss it. Your foundation does such important work. The irony was not lost on me. The Norman Foundation claimed to help struggling families. Meanwhile, William's silence had nearly destroyed mine. We talked. About the gala. About business. About nothing important. But I watched him. Studied him. Looked for any flicker of recognition. Any sign that he remembered the terrified college student who had woken in his penthouse 3 years ago. Nothing. I was a complete stranger to him. When the speeches began, I stood in the back. Watched William take the stage and talk about giving back. About helping those less fortunate. About the importance of standing up for what was right. I wanted to scream. To stand up and tell everyone the truth. But I stayed silent. Because my revenge required patience. Required strategy. And the time for revelation was not yet here. I left the gala early. Went home to where Liam was sleeping peacefully, watched over by his nanny. Stood in his doorway, watching him breathe. This beautiful child. The living reminder of what I had survived. The reason I kept fighting. Soon, I whispered. Soon they'll all know the truth. The scandal broke 3 weeks after the gala. Anonymous documents leaked to the press showing irregularities in the Norman Foundation's finances. Missing funds. Questionable expenses. And buried in those records, undeniable evidence of Natasha's theft. The media erupted. Norman Family Foundation embezzlement scandal. Cousin's fiancé implicated in fraud. Charity money allegedly stolen for personal use. Natasha went from social media darling to public pariah overnight. People who had praised her now demanded answers. Her posts about helping her troubled sister were dug up and analyzed in a new light. She criticized her sister while stealing from charity. This family is full of frauds. I watched it unfold from my office, feeling cold satisfaction. Not joy. Not happiness. Just the grim pleasure of seeing justice finally being served. Marcus Norman broke off the engagement immediately. He issued a statement claiming he had been deceived and betrayed by someone I trusted. Natasha tried to fight back. She gave interviews claiming she was being framed, that someone was targeting her. She was right, of course, but she could not prove it. And in the court of public opinion, her guilt was already decided. The evidence was too clear. The pattern is too obvious. My mother called me for the first time in 3 years. I let it go to voicemail. Bella, please. They're saying terrible things about Natasha. They're investigating me too. They think we worked together. Please, you have to help us. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. They were experiencing a fraction of what they had put me through. A taste of public humiliation and judgment. It was not enough. It would never be enough to balance the scales. But it was a start. William requested an emergency meeting. I knew what it would be about. The scandal was affecting his entire family. The foundation. His company's reputation. I arrived at his office, my expression carefully neutral. He looked stressed. Tired. Some of his usual polish was gone. Isabel, thank you for coming. I know this is unusual, but I need someone I can trust.
Trust.
The word was almost funny. What's going on, William? The foundation scandal. It's destroying my family's reputation. Marcus is devastated. My board is demanding answers. And I think there's more to this than Natasha's theft. What do you mean? The timing. The way the information leaked. It feels orchestrated. Like someone wanted maximum damage. He looked at me directly. You're good at finding weakness and eliminating it. That's what you told me. I need someone who thinks like that to help me figure out who's behind this. I should have said no. Should have maintained my distance. But the opportunity was too perfect. I'll help, I said. On one condition. Complete transparency. No secrets. If I'm going to find who's targeting your family, I need to know everything. 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 Including things you might want to keep hidden. William hesitated, then nodded. All right, where do we start? At the beginning. Tell me about any enemies you've made. Anyone who might want to destroy the Norman name. He talked for 2 hours. About business rivals. Disgruntled former employees. Lawsuits and settlements. But he never mentioned me. Never brought up the scandal from 3 years ago. Either he had genuinely forgotten, or he did not see that situation as relevant. Both possibilities enraged me. What about personal enemies? I pressed. People you've wronged outside of business? I try not to make personal enemies. Business is business, but personal relationships, I keep those separate. Always? Never any messy situations? Never anyone you had to contain. I was pushing, trying to see if he would finally connect the dots. William shifted uncomfortably. There was one situation. 3 years ago. A woman claimed to be pregnant. Said I was the father. My PR team handled it. Paid her off. She disappeared. And you never thought about her again? It was handled. That's all that mattered. My hands clenched beneath the table. That's all that mattered. Not whether it was true. Not whether she was okay. Just whether it was handled. I smiled coldly. Maybe you should think about her now. I left William's office and immediately contacted several journalists I had built relationships with over the past 3 years. It was time for the next phase. Within 48 hours, articles began appearing. William Norman's past, questions about paternity claims. What happened to the woman who accused Norman 3 years ago? Charity Foundation's financial issues raise questions about other Norman family secrets. The stories did not accuse William directly. They just asked questions, raised concerns, connected us, without making explicit claims. But the public was smart. They started putting pieces together. Social media exploded with speculation. Wasn't there a woman he paid off? I remember that scandal. She was beaten up. Did they ever find who did it? This family covers up everything. William called me in a panic. Isabel, did you see these articles? Someone's digging into the past. They're trying to connect the foundation scandal to that situation from 3 years ago. Are they wrong to make that connection? I asked coolly. That woman was lying. The DNA test never happened because she disappeared with the settlement money. Did she? Or did she disappear because she was afraid? What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe your past is catching up with you. Maybe someone who was hurt by your actions is finally fighting back. William was silent for a long moment. You know something. Who are you really? This was it. The moment I had been planning for 3 years. But something made me hesitate. Some last remnant of Bella Torres that wanted him to figure it out himself. To see her without being told. I'm exactly who I said I was. I told him. Isabel Kane.
CEO.
Survivor. Someone who knows what it's like to be dismissed and destroyed by people who have power. I hung up before he could respond.
Let him sit with that.
Let him wonder. Let him start to question everything he thought he knew. The board of Norman Industries called an emergency meeting. William's reputation was affecting stock prices. Investors were nervous. Partners were reconsidering contracts. Everything I had predicted was happening. The carefully constructed empire was cracking. And I was just getting started. William hired investigators to look into Isabel Kane's background. I had prepared for this. My new identity was solid, but not perfect. I had left small clues, breadcrumbs for someone smart enough to follow. It took them 2 weeks to find the connection. A record of a name change. Bella Torres to Isabel Kane. Filed 3 years ago, right after my release from the hospital. One of William's investigators brought in the file. I knew this because the investigator was someone I had paid more to work for me than William was paying. Mr. Norman discovered your real identity, he told me over the phone. He's on his way to your office now. I thanked him and prepared. Straightened my suit. Gathered the files I wanted William to see. And waited. He arrived 20 minutes later. Burst through my office door without knocking. His face was a mixture of shock, anger, and something that might have been guilt. Bella, he said. Just my name. Like a statement and a question combined. That's not my name anymore. I replied calmly. Bella died 3 years ago. I'm Isabel now. You've been lying to me, working with me, all while planning what? Revenge. Not revenge. Justice. There's a difference. Justice for what? I tried to help you. I sent money. You tried to silence me. I stood, my voice rising despite my attempts to stay calm. You dismissed me like I was nothing. When your PR team tried to pay me off, you didn't even ask if it was true. You just assumed I was lying. The situation was complicated. No, it was simple. You got someone pregnant and didn't want the inconvenience. So you let your people handle it. And when that blew up in my face when I was beaten and nearly killed, you threw money at it and forgot I existed. William had gone pale. I didn't know about the attack until after. I never would have. Your silence made it possible. Your dismissal of me as a gold digger painted a target on my back. And I lost a child because of it. The words hung in the air between us. I pulled out a file, slid it across the desk to him. DNA results from when I gave birth. Liam is your son. The twin we lost was your daughter. All of this, every bit of pain, every moment of terror, was because you were too concerned about your reputation to simply ask if I was telling the truth. William picked up the file with shaking hands. Read through the DNA results. The hospital records from my attack. The death certificate of our daughter. His face crumbled as he read. All the cold control he was famous for dissolving. I have a son, he whispered. You had twins. Now you have one son. A son who asked me last week why he doesn't have a daddy. I pulled out my phone, showed him a photo of Liam. Dark-haired, bright-eyed, brilliant. This is what you dismissed. This is what you almost lost completely. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. I took my phone back. You offered me protection earlier.
Said you were horrified by the attack.
But you were only horrified when it might reflect badly on you. When it was just me, just some college student making claims, I was a problem to be solved. William sank into a chair. What do you want from me? Want? Nothing. You can't give me back what I lost. You can't undo 3 years of building myself from nothing. You can't return the daughter who died or the innocence I had before all this. Then why are you doing this? Why infiltrate my company? Why destroy my family? I leaned forward, my voice cold and steady. Because you need to understand consequences. You need to see what your silence cost. And you need to feel what I felt, powerless, alone, and watching everything you built crumble while people you trusted do nothing. I want to meet him, William said suddenly. My son.
Please.
Let me meet Liam.
Why?
So you can play daddy now that it's convenient? Now that the truth is public.
No.
Because I was wrong. Because I should have asked questions 3 years ago instead of letting my team handle everything. Because I owe him, and you, more than I can ever repay. I studied him, looking for manipulation, for calculation. But all I saw was genuine devastation. Maybe, I said finally, but not yet. First, you're going to help me finish what I started. What do you mean? The people who attacked me. Your PR team who orchestrated the character assassination. Everyone who profited from my destruction. They all need to face consequences. William nodded slowly. Tell me what you need. Over the next hour, I laid out the full extent of my plan. The evidence I had gathered. The connections I had made. The systematic destruction of everyone who had wronged me. William listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said quietly, You're right.
They all need to pay.
And I'll help you. Not because I think it will earn your forgiveness, but because it's what I should have done 3 years ago. The trials began 2 months later. Catherine Walsh, William's former PR manager, was first. Evidence showed she had known about the attack in advance, had done nothing to prevent it, had actually encouraged the narrative that made me a target. You painted Bella Torres as a gold digger, the prosecutor said. You fed stories to the media knowing they would incite public hatred. Did you consider the consequences? I was doing my job, Catherine said coldly, protecting my client's reputation, even if it meant destroying an innocent woman. She wasn't innocent. She was trying to trap a billionaire with a pregnancy claim. The prosecutor played recordings. Catherine on the phone with tabloid journalists. Catherine drafting the settlement offer. Catherine telling her team to make this story go away by any means necessary. The jury convicted her of conspiracy and obstruction of justice. 5 years in prison. Marcus Norman, William's cousin, was next. Not for Natasha's theft, but for his own crimes. He had known about the foundation fraud, had helped cover it up, had used charity money to fund his lifestyle. I was following family orders, he claimed. William knew about everything. But the evidence showed otherwise. William had been kept in the dark while Marcus and Natasha stole millions. The cousin I had thought was just a pawn turned out to be a mastermind. 7 years in federal prison. My mother and Natasha were tried together.
Fraud.
Conspiracy. Identity theft. They had been using my name and tragedy to scam donors and supporters for 3 years. We were victims too, my mother claimed on the stand. Bella's scandal destroyed our family. We were just trying to survive. I testified at their trial. I stood in the witness box and told the truth about my childhood, about the manipulation and emotional abuse, about how they had exploited my tragedy for social climbing. They sold their daughter for comfort and status, I said clearly. They spread lies that made me a target. And when I was beaten and nearly killed, they used that tragedy to fundraise and gain sympathy. They are not victims. They are opportunists. The jury agreed. My mother received 8 years. Natasha received 10. As they were led away, Natasha looked at me with pure hatred. This is all your fault, she screamed. You ruined everything. No, I said calmly. You ruined everything. I just made sure you faced consequences. 2 weeks after the final trial, Liam asked me again about his father. We were sitting in our living room. He was building something complicated with blocks, his small face serious, with concentration. Mama, is my daddy a good person now?
Now.
The word implied understanding that things had changed. That whatever his father had been before was different from what he was becoming. I think he's trying to be, I said honestly. Trying is better than nothing, Liam said with the simple wisdom of a child. Can I meet him? I had been expecting this question, dreading and preparing for it simultaneously. Would you want to? I want to know where I come from. You always say I'm strong like you. But maybe I'm strong like him too. This child was too perceptive, too mature for his age. Let me talk to him first. Make sure he understands what this means. Okay, Mama. That evening, I called William. We had been in regular contact since the revelation. Awkward, painful conversations where we tried to navigate this new reality. Liam wants to meet you, I said without preamble. William was silent for a long moment. What do I say to him? How do I explain? You tell him the truth. That you made mistakes. That you're sorry. That you want to be part of his life if he'll let you. Do you want me to be part of his life? The question was direct, vulnerable. The old William would never have asked it. What I want doesn't matter. This is about Liam. About what he needs. Bella, Isabel, I need you to know something. I've spent the last 3 months reviewing everything. The attack. The media coverage. The settlement. And I've realized how completely I failed you. I know you failed me. That's not news. But I need to say it. You were right about everything. My silence, my cowardice, my willingness to believe the worst because it was easier than facing the truth. All of it created the conditions for what happened to you. And I'm sorry. I know that's inadequate. I know it doesn't undo anything. But I'm sorry. I had imagined this apology 1,000 times. Had scripted his words and my response in my head. But hearing it actually spoken felt different than I had expected. Less satisfying. More complicated. Apologies don't change the past, I said finally. But they can change the future. For Liam's sake, I'm willing to give you a chance. One chance. Don't waste it. The meeting was arranged for a neutral location. A private park where Liam could play while William and I talked nearby. I watched William arrive. He looked nervous. Nothing like the confident CEO who commanded boardrooms. Just a man about to meet his son for the first time. Liam was playing on the swings when William approached. I had shown Liam photos, explained who William was, prepared him as much as I could. Liam, I called gently. Someone wants to meet you. Liam walked over, studying William with those sharp, intelligent eyes. You're my father, he said. It was not a question. William knelt down to Liam's level. Yes, I am. And I'm very sorry I haven't been here before now. Mama says you didn't know about me. That's true. But I should have known. I should have asked questions and listened better. I made mistakes, and you and your mother paid for them. Liam considered this seriously. Are you going to make more mistakes? Probably, William admitted. But I'm going to try very hard not to. And if I do, I promise to admit it and try to fix it. Do you know about my sister? The one who died. William's face crumpled. Yes, I know. And I'm so sorry you lost her. That your mother lost her. That we all lost her. Mama says she's watching over us. That she wants me to be happy. Then that's what we should try to give you. Happiness. Safety. A future where you never have to go through what your mother went through. Liam looked at me, then back at William. Okay, you can be my dad. But you have to promise to protect Mama. She's been protecting me for my whole life. Now it's someone else's turn. I felt tears threatening. This beautiful, impossible child. I promise, William said, his voice thick with emotion. I'll protect both of you. For as long as you'll let me. They talked for another hour. Awkward at first, then easier. William told Liam about his company. Liam told William about school and his favorite books. I watched from a distance, giving them space. Feeling a complicated mixture of emotions I could not quite name. The public revelation came 3 weeks later. William held a press conference. I stood beside him, Liam between us. The cameras flashed continuously as William began speaking. 3 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my professional and personal life. A woman came to me claiming to be pregnant with my child, and instead of investigating the truth, I let my PR team handle it. I assumed she was lying because it was easier than facing the possibility that she might be telling the truth. He paused, his voice shaking slightly. That woman was Bella Torres, now known as Isabel Kane, and she was telling the truth. I have a son. His name is Liam. We also had a daughter who died because of the violence that my silence enabled. The press room erupted with questions. William held up his hand. I need to say this. Isabel didn't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even the knowledge that my son existed. But she gave me a chance anyway. Not because I deserved it, but because our son deserved to know his father. He turned to look at me. What happened to her was my fault. The attack, the loss of our daughter, 3 years of having to rebuild her life from nothing while I went on without consequences. All of it traces back to my cowardice and my obsession with reputation over truth. Are you together now? A reporter shouted. No, I said, speaking for the first time. We're not together. We're parents, partners in raising our son. But romantic relationship is not something either of us is ready for or interested in. That was not entirely true. Over the past weeks, something had been shifting between us. Not love exactly, but understanding. Recognition of shared pain and shared responsibility.
But this moment was not about that.
This moment was about truth and accountability. The press conference lasted 2 hours. We answered every question, showed the DNA results, told the story of everything that had happened. When it was over, the media reaction was mixed. Some praised William for taking responsibility. Others condemned him for waiting so long. Some called me a gold digger who had orchestrated everything. Others called me a survivor who had fought back against injustice. I did not care about public opinion anymore. I cared that Liam could grow up knowing his father, that the truth was finally public, that everyone who had wronged me had faced consequences. 6 months after the press conference, I sat in my office reviewing final documents, the last piece of my plan. I had spent years building towards this moment, years of strategic acquisitions and careful manipulation. Now I owned controlling interest in Norman Industries, not through hostile takeover, through careful, legal purchases of shares from investors who had lost faith in William's leadership. I called William to my office. I want to show you something, I said when he arrived. I laid out the documents, the share certificates, the voting rights, the evidence that I now controlled his company. William stared at the papers. You own my empire. Yes. Are you going to destroy it? Take everything I built? I had asked myself that question 1,000 times. In my darkest moments, when the rage and pain threatened to consume me, I had planned exactly how I would dismantle everything he had created. But looking at him now, at this man who had admitted his mistakes, who was trying to be a father to our son, who had helped me find justice, I realized something. No, I said. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm going to transform it. We're going to run it together. Equal partners. Your business knowledge and my strategic vision. We're going to build something better than what existed before.
Why?
After everything I did to you, why would you do this? Because Liam deserves to inherit something clean, something built on truth instead of lies. And because revenge is empty, justice matters, but so does building something positive from the ashes. I pulled out one more document. This is a new structure for Norman Industries. 50-50 ownership, equal decision-making power, and a foundation, a real one, not a tax shelter, to help women who've been victimized the way I was. William read through the documents slowly. This is more than I deserve. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing what kind of people we're going to be going forward. The past happened. We can't change it, but we can decide what we build from here. He looked up, meeting my eyes. I don't know if I can ever fully make up for what I did to you. You can't, but you can be better. For Liam, For the other women who need protection. For yourself. William signed the documents. As he did, I felt something release inside me. Not forgiveness exactly. Not forgetting. But closure. The rage that had driven me for 3 years was finally beginning to fade, replaced by something more sustainable.
Purpose. Hope.
A future that was not just about revenge. 2 years later, I stood at Liam's kindergarten graduation. William sat beside me, our hands casually intertwined. It had happened slowly. The partnership. The friendship. Eventually something more. We did not call it love. The word felt too simple for what we had. It was understanding, recognition of shared trauma and shared growth. Two people who had hurt each other learning to build something better. Liam ran up to us after the ceremony, his diploma clutched in his small hand. Did you see me, Mama? Did you see? I saw everything, baby. You were perfect. Can we get ice cream? Liam asked. Both of you have to come. Both of us. William asked, smiling.
Yes.
You're my parents. You're supposed to do things together. Out of the mouths of children. As we walked to get ice cream, I thought about everything that had brought us to this moment. The betrayal, the pain, the revenge, the justice, the slowly building trust. A photographer approached. Ms. Kane, Mr. Norman, can I get a photo for the society page? 3 years ago, I would have said no. Would have protected my privacy and Liam's. But I was not afraid anymore. Not of cameras. Not of judgment. Not of the truth. Sure, I said. We posed together. Liam in the middle, beaming. William and I on either side. Looking like what we were, a family built from broken pieces. Learning to be whole. The caption appeared in the paper the next day, From Scandal to Success, the remarkable journey of Isabel Kane and William Norman. But it was not about success or scandal. It was about survival. About choosing to build instead of destroy. About turning pain into purpose. I had wanted revenge. I had gotten justice. And in the process of tearing down an empire, I had helped build something better. Not perfect. Not without scars. But real.
Honest.
Built on truth. The CEO had left me pregnant and alone. But I had not just survived. I had not just taken his empire. I had transformed it into something he could never have built alone. And in the end, that was better than any revenge I could have imagined.